to the US, another aviation tragedy overnight, this time in Philadelphia, after a medical plane carrying 6 passengers, including a child, has crashed.
Yes, this comes just days after an American Airlines flight collided with an Army helicopter over Washington, D.C., killing 67 people.
The medical jet crashed within minutes of taking off. It plummeted into a highly populated area of northern Philadelphia, setting multiple homes and cars on fire. Well, joining us now is aviation expert Sally Gethin to tell us more. Sally, what do we know about this story so far? What's happened here?
So it was an aircraft called a Learjet, which was a medical ambulance aircraft, and it had a few passengers on board, and it had only just taken off. And in fact, the tracking data shows that it was merely 40 seconds, that's less than a minute, between takeoff and it actually crashing back down to the ground. It hit the ground at such a velocity. It was something like 183 feet a second. And it formed this massive impact and a huge explosion, and apocalyptic scenes, in fact, were being experienced and witnessed by local residents. This was a densely populated area, and people were running, feared for their lives. There are reports of some injuries on the ground as well. And obviously this causes shockwaves in the United States, which has come 2 incidents now within around 48 hours, barely 2 to 3 days, and very early into the Trump presidency and very early into the new year.
We're just looking at pictures now for any of our viewers that are at home. We're looking at some images from America after that crash overnight. How have we ended up in a situation where it seems that this kind of incident is becoming much more frequent? It's terrifying, isn't it, for anyone who's going to travel by air?
Well, I have to admit, you know, I've been covering these stories frequently now over the festive period as well. This is the third, with the DC crash, that's the third major incident globally. I'm not saying in the United States, but globally in the last 30 odd days. And now we have this. It is a much more smaller incident, but it is no less tragic for those who have been affected. Now, having said all that, travel is very, very safe, and the United States in particular has had almost an unblemished safety record till the last week, which proves how safe it is. And the United States is the leading nation in terms of air travel and air transport. And here in Europe, a very similar situation as well. So it's a very minuscule amount, but no less worrying when we see the incidents of these magnitude.
And Sally, what we're hearing about those on board this aircraft today is just even more tragic, perhaps, because we learn that there was a child on board this plane who had just been in the US for life-saving medical treatment, and now, of course, this accident has taken place. It just makes it even worse in a way, doesn't it? What can you tell us about those on board the aircraft? What do we know so far?
Yeah, so as you just said, those on board the aircraft were actually being supported in a medical clinical capacity, and also in a charitable capacity as well. And as you say, there were passengers on board that had been sponsored and supported for health issues, and yeah, that adds to the horrible tragedy of all of it. I will say that in terms of the collision or the impact on the ground, one of the worrying signs for those who witnessed it was the sheer velocity of the way it came down. And this is spurring people on to jump to very big conclusions about it, especially on the heels of the other incident. I think what's happening now is more and more is coming out. The DC crash is being unpacked almost day by day. We're getting updates all the time. But I think in the weeks and months ahead, this will slow down as each investigation, there will be a full investigation. This latest one also takes months and months eventually to reach a full conclusion.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Sally.
Joining me now is Ella Atkins, who is an American aerospace engineer. Ella, thank you very much for joining me today. Now, obviously, 2 horrific accidents in the space of a week. Lots of people now online are saying, I'm scared to travel. But travelling by plane is actually, you're more danger getting to the airport than you are from actually flying it, as I understand it.
Yes, that's correct. We have 2 unfortunate incidents that happened in close proximity, but there's no reason to believe this trend is going to continue. Airplanes are flying every day very safely. I'm on my way right now to the airport in North Carolina in the U.S., and I will feel very safe climbing aboard and flying on my flight.
Mm-hmm. So these are, I mean, what do you make of the, firstly, of the incident in Washington? I mean, we're learning a bit more about it now, maybe as a staff shortage in the air traffic control area, but we're still, obviously, as an inquiry needs to be happening. What do you make of it?
I don't believe air traffic control was a significant factor. I believe they were doing their job. It seems to be conventional for low-flying Army helicopters that need to fly over the Potomac River because there are so many nearby government buildings that are quite sensitive that we have a very busy corridor over that river with both commercial traffic coming in and out of Reagan Airport, as well as the helicopter traffic that needs to fly over the river, both for safety reasons and for noise reasons. So in this case, the helicopters are instructed to stay very low above the river so that there is a little bit of margin between them and the fixed-wing aircraft coming into Reagan Airport and coming out. In this case, the helicopter was flying too high. Furthermore, the helicopter asked the tower to maintain visual separation. The tower authorized something that they authorize every day, which is to trust the helicopter to follow the aircraft and miss them. In this case, the helicopter let them down. They let mostly the fixed-wing aircraft down as it was coming in to approach the runway. And they also let down air traffic control because they did not do what they were supposed to do, what they asked to do, which is to maintain visual separation.
And Ella, just quickly, because I know you are on your way to an airport, what do you make of Donald Trump's statement or the press conference he gave straight away, blaming the diversity hires that the Federal American Air Force administration used? What do you make of his comments?
I don't think that there's a relation. I think he was acting early without having a lot of information about the specifics of the situation. I think that what Defense Secretary Hegseth said later is more accurate, which is that it appears there were mistakes made, especially with the helicopter. And I think that it is not appropriate to immediately jump to DEI, though I do think that we're going to have a lot more information once we recover the helicopter's information. I hear we have the black box from the helicopter that has flight data. I do not yet know if we have a voice recorder from the helicopter.
Okay, and Ella, just very finally and quickly, what would you say to people now watching and listening to this show who are now, because of these 2 very close together accidents, are very nervous about getting on a plane again?
Yeah, so the second one, the Learjet in Philadelphia, that I believe you're showing footage of right now, that is unfortunate, but a more common accident. In this particular case, the Learjet appeared to taxi and take off normally from this airport, and then they did not report an emergency, but they crashed very soon after takeoff. Usually that has something to do either with an engine failure, pilot error, which could be, in fact, turning off the wrong engine, for example, when one fails, or a problem with the controls. Once we have the black box from this Learjet, we'll be able to determine whether electromechanical failures were an issue or whether there was error. The fact that it descended very sharply suggests that there may have been a stall, but that stall could have been could have resulted from a number of reasons.
Yeah, just a horrible accident. Ella, thank you very much for joining us today.